Alright, what is up my friends? Welcome. We are going through my entire cube. We are sleeving every card, talking about my cards in my cube design in general, just kind of talking about every card in the cube. I went over my cube as a whole, my design philosophies in the first video, which is white if you're watching on YouTube, so go back and watch that for sure. And I'll be doing some cube content on coolstuffinc.com as well. Big thanks to bcwsupplies.com for these Elite 2 deck card sleeves. Same sleeves I use in tournaments. They sent me an entire box, a case of them to use for my cube here, and I'm really happy about it because the sleeves were in were ancient. So let's get started here. We're jumping right into black, and themes in black are some aggression for sure. I think that aggressive black decks tend to fail in most cubes because there isn't enough. The curves aren't low enough. There isn't enough disruption, and there isn't enough support. And people end up just cutting all the black 1-drops in their cube. I think that's horribly wrong. So we start with Blood-Soaked Champion here. Again, there is a human. The only creature types in the cube that matter are human and zombie. Human's more important than zombie. Tons of human stuff in white. So Champion's a human, obviously, as well as being a aggressive creature. It's recursive. There's a lot of cool stuff to do with your recursive creatures in black. Sacrifice outlets, recursive effects, village rights, etc., which is super cool, as well as a ton of graveyard stuff as well. So Champion's super cool, and you might end up discarding it to a whatever, or milling it to such a supplier, and so on and so forth. So a lot of like sacrificey, graveyardy stuff going on, as well as the aggression. So Champion fills that role really well. Yes, Champion of the Parish will definitely be in black when it's printed in the new set. Champion of the Parish is the black Champion of the Parish for zombies. That card's gonna be really good. Carrion Feeder. Again, we're kind of going over cards that make my cube what it is. My cube is a very high power level legacy cube. Super low mana curve. Meant to feel like constructed. Gotta draft a deck. Carrion Feeder. This is the card. We're looking for cards that kind of stand out as linchpins for my cube. This is one of them. It's a zombie. It's a sack outlet. It's cheap. It can be aggressive. Tons of synergies with Bloodghast or Gravecrawler. There's probably some infinite combo somewhere in the cube. We can have a sack outlet loop, but just having that cheap sack outlet, Skyclave Shade, it just goes on Sedgemoor Witch, etc. And super cheap package. It's a zombie. There are some zombie synergies as well. I freaking love Carrion Feeder, and I love cards like this. They're cheap. They're efficient. They do multiple things. Just a linchpin in my cube for sure. Our next, we only have so many zombie synergy cards, but one of them is Crypt Breaker. This card's freaking awesome. It is not only a synergy card, it's a discard outlet too for your Reanimator deck. If you're playing a lot of zombies, you can draw cards with it. If you're not, it can just turn lands into 2/2s. You can discard your Blood-Soaked Champion and make a 2/2 and get it back. Just a very solid card. Again, the graveyard's a huge part of black as a color, but it's not just Reanimate and Entomb. There's a lot of cool graveyard stuff happening across multiple things. We'll see Hogak in the Golgari cards. We see cards like Haunted Dead. Just a lot of really cool graveyard stuff happening, and Crypt Breaker does that, as well as the usual zombie thing too, which is super cool. Red Wanderer is another recursive zombie. Not extremely powerful, but it fits the bill. It's a zombie, it's recursive, it's reasonable, just solid card. Gravecrawler is obviously much better than Dread Wanderer is. One of the best, 1-drops in the color. Super recursive. Again, great with all of these sack outlets. You can sacrifice it to Carrion Feeder, you can sacrifice it to Braids and keep casting it over and over again. It's also just a good beater too, so 2/1 for 1, which is great. Love Gravecrawler, love it, and a lot of cool things you can do with it in this cube. Again, Village Rights, Skull Clamp, and so on and so forth. I freaking love Gravecrawler, super awesome card. Knight of Ebon Legion is here. It's not a zombie, it's not a human, but it's a really good card. And you gotta have some good beatdown cards that scale well late in the game, and Knight of Ebon Legion is a great card for that. So, not every card's gonna be a synergy card. There are some cards that are there in raw power, and that is definitely one of them. Putrid Imp, another card, similar to Carrion Feeder, old school card. I mean, beat up, I love it. Again, this is a synergy card for your Reanimator deck. You discard those fatties, this card does that. It's also cheap, it's a zombie, it's kind of aggressive. Not every deck wants this card, but the ones that do want it will want it, and it fits that role. And again, the bar for 1-mana spells is much lower than the bar for 5-mana spells. I'd much rather have a Putrid Imp in my cube than the 5th copy of Liliana, because it builds much more interesting decks. It's good if there are cards in the draft that no one wants because people just warrant that deck. That's not a bug, it's a feature. I think that every card shouldn't be draftable by everyone. and you need to have themes in your colors, where there's cards that some folks really want and some folks don't want, and Petrodimp kind of fills that role. Supplier is obviously great. The zombie, graveyard stuff. Sees play in multiple formats. Just fits the bill perfectly. Does everything you want it to do. Bloodghast is honestly one of my favorite cards in the entire cube. If you're looking for this sort of graveyard, recursive, aggressive sacrifice element, Bloodghast is by far the best card for that. Bloodghast Skull Clamp, Bloodghast other sacrifice outlets, braids, smokestack, whatever it is. I just love this card so much. I also love it. It's free. Some of the other cards like Bloodsoaked Champion and whatever, you gotta like pay to recur them. This one's free and just keeps coming back over and over and over and over again. I'm an absolute in love with Bloodghast. One of my favorite cards in the cube. One of my favorite cards in general, honestly. A huge Bloodghast fan. It's great in the cube, and I love it. Bobby's next, and it's kind of cool because Bobby's a human. It's a proxy. Some of the cards are proxy in my cube. This is kind of an old one. I should probably just get one. They're cheap now, but Dark Confidence, obviously a phenomenal card. It's also a human, and then Dark Confidence is the kind of card where I think this card is really, really good in well-designed cubes and pretty bad in not well-designed cubes. So we see a lot in the Magic Online cubes. There are just so many 5-drops and 6-drops. You can't draft a lean deck. It's almost impossible. So Bob's kind of like, it's kind of risky. But in my cube, where the mana curve is just so low, Dark Confidence is freaking awesome. Great card. It's a human, obviously. And good in aggro decks, good in more controlling, like Jundi decks. Just a super, super awesome card. The boot. Give him the boot. The roots, the radicals. Freebooter is here. It's obviously a cool, disruptive card. Not particularly amazing, but there's a solid human theme across white and black. Dahlia's Lieutenant and General Kudrow and so on and so forth. Plenty of ways to pump it. We want to have some disruption. Mesmeric Fiend's not really good enough anymore, but Freebooter fits that bill. There are a lot of powerful things you can do in my cube. Show and tell, Oath of Druids, etc., etc. And having cards like this is very, very important to stop them from doing that. So, not the most exciting card ever, but super solid. However, speaking of exciting cards, Priest of Forgotten Gods is amazing in my cube. Because as we were saying, we got Bloodghast, we have Gravecrawler, all of these good sacrifice outlets, and you can keep priesting over and over again. It's a human, makes mana, draws cards. Very, very cool. And again, not every deck wants this card, but the ones that do really want it, which is super, super cool. Skyclave Shade is sort of like your poor man's Bloodghast, but it's still a really cool card. Again, fills the graveyard theme, fills the sacrifice theme, and really good against control decks, which is great also, and just a good card. Just a solid card I like a lot. I'm just a huge fan of these recursive cards. Speaking of cards I'm a huge fan of, Playcrafter. Play this card a lot in Constructed. This is a card that might raise some eyebrows, but again, when you have so many Bloodghasts and Gravecrawlers and things like that, Playcrafter is freaking awesome. Just a really, really good card. Really good value card. Very cool card for Recurring Nightmare and things like that. It's a 3/2. It's a human. You can company into it. It's just like a very flexible card. Is the power level a tiny bit lower than everything else? Yeah, but super cool card. I like it a lot. And I'm just down. Reggie. Reggie's another great cube card because some decks want to put cards in the graveyard. Some decks want a big beater. And this sort of serves both those roles. It's also a zombie. Whether you're all in just trying to kill them. We saw Rotting Regisaur cast on turn 1 via Dark Ritual last Sunday, which is pretty fun. And just an awesome card. Just an awesome card. I like that one a lot. Other new addition here that's really cool, hasn't really gotten a chance to shine yet, is Sedgemoor Witch. And Sedgemoor Witch is a very, very powerful card. Didn't see much play in Standard because obviously Bone Crusher Giant, and there really isn't the critical mass of cheap spells in Standard like there is in other formats. Well, we got them here. There are tons of cheap spells in every color. Obviously, blue has, Thought Scour and Brainstorm and so on. But they're in other colors too. Black has Cling to Dust. Red has, Crash Through. White's got Defiant Strike and so on and so forth. So, very, very powerful card. We actually just cut a Phenomancer. It was my last cut for black. I'll discuss that in a second. But very, very powerful card. Super awesome cards. He's playing older formats. It's a human also, which is kind of cool. And kind of a cool card for your spell decks. And also makes fodder token, which is kind of cool as well. Just a very good card. Very, very good card. Xanthed Necromancer. Again, there is a slight human theme. So, Necromancer fits that bill. It's also good for sacrifice stuff. Again, same idea. Sacrifice creatures for value, gain value, get tokens, etc. Enough humans where you can make it work. And then it's also good for human decks just to like play against removal spells and stuff. Rotlong Reanimator for all my boomers out there. And fills that role. Super cool card. Now, I cut a Phenomancer. Those who know what a Phenomancer is, it's a 2/2 for 3 that makes a Death Touch snake every upkeep as if you don't have a snake. I love that card a lot. It was really, really cool. Again, it's great with sack outlets. It's great with braids. The problem is that there are a ton of other cards that are also good in that respect. And if you're an aggro deck that is light on removal, like green-white aggro or white weenie, a Phenomancer is really, really hard to get through. So I decided there were enough effects that were serving the Phenomancer's purpose of multiple fodder pieces that it wasn't really a necessary card anymore. So it was my last cut. You gotta make cuts in Cube. It's tough. It's really tough. But up next is one of my favorite cards, Braids Cabal Minion. An excellent, excellent payoff for all of this recursive stuff. You know, sack your Bloodghast, get it back. Sack your Gravecrawler, get it back. And the disruption that these decks need to really push through and beat the more powerful decks. You know, so you have fast start, you slam a Braids, they sack a land or two, and you get ahead, and they can't beat you anymore, you know. So, very important card for black, super, super awesome card. Similar to a Hokori Dustdrinker in white, same idea. You got to get ahead. If you're going to get ahead, you got to be able to slam the door home somehow. It's a symmetrical card. It's not an easy card to use. You can't just put it in your deck and play it, but it's a very fun card, and freaking love Braids. Up next is a weird one, Haunted Dead. Love the graveyard stuff. I love the graveyard stuff. And this is the kind of graveyard card that is also not Entomb Reanimate. I wasn't sure about this one, but I had a really cool green-black deck on Sunday. It was my first deck that was Golgari. And Haunted Dead was actually awesome. I entombed for it once or twice. It was great with Hogak. Just a really cool card, honestly. You know, if you're able to play like Life from Alone, you can keep getting cards back. You can keep recurring it. You can sacrifice it to things. Definitely a card was a little bit on the watch list as far as power level goes, but again, a cool synergy card. Every deck want it? No. Does it do enough decks want it? I think so. You know, it's definitely a card that's on the edge, but I like the card a lot. Rankle, Master of Pranks. Another one of those cards that, you know, wasn't all the way there in Standard, but is extremely powerful and a really, really fun, cool card. That's a discard outlet. It's aggressive. It's a sacrifice outlet. This card basically does everything that all of the cheaper cards in the cube want to do. And another card that sucks in Magic Online cubes is the curves are so bad. But when your deck is just full of Bloodghasts and Gravecrawlers and sacrifice effects, becomes a really, really good curve topper. I think Rankle is awesome. And I think Rankle is, again, a product of the environment. And it's a kind of card where by itself it isn't very good. But it's a more than sum of its parts kind of card. And that's the kind of exactly what my cube is. So Rankle is the perfect 4-drop for my cube. Love Rankle. Love it, love it, love it. Great synergy card. Huge, huge fan. And it's been very, very good. Very, very good. And our last two black creatures, or us three, I'm sorry, are the big ones here. We got Grave Titan here. Grave Titan is probably the best Titan in a vacuum. You know, obviously Prime Time's better if you have a Valak in your deck or whatever, but super powerful. It's a reanimation target. It's a control finisher. You can just cast it. It makes zombies. Just a honkin' chonker. Grave Titan's one of the best fatties in black for sure. We have Tasigur the Golden Fang. I have Tasigur over Gurmag Angler because I think Tasigur is a more interesting card. There's just more stuff that it can do, and the sizing doesn't matter as much when you're not playing so many mirrors. You know, if you're playing Legacy and you're playing Gurmag Angler and your opponent's playing Tasigur, your opponent's very sad if they can't trade. But Cube isn't like that. You know, we're not playing mirrors and so on and so forth. So I think that it's a little cheaper, easier to cast, and the utility of the ability is much more important than that 5th point of power. So Tasigur gets the easy call here over Gurmag Angler. And good for graveyard decks, good grindy card. Just solid card. And of course, Grizzlebrand, the best reanimation target, not close. Dagger, thanks for following. If you haven't followed the stream, hit that follow button. Of course, watching on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I mean, just the best fatty in the cube. It's not really close. So that's your black creatures. Now we're gonna move on to our black spells. And take a little sip of my drink here. 1 second. Sorry, folks. A lot of talking. Elesh Norn is not in the cube. No, no Elesh Norn. There aren't that many like strict reanimation targets because the goal is you got to work for them. You got to work for them. You know, the vintage cube of Magic Online always has like every Eldrazi, every fatty. So you just like take your channel first pick and you always get something with it. You know, so. Our first black card is a one that I'm really, really happy to have in the cube. This is like a great cube card. And this card is going to surprise you. It's going to surprise you. It's Cling to Dust. And again, I think Cling to Dust is the perfect kind of cog cube card. You'll rarely see this card in a cube. You'll never see it in a Magic Online cube. But Cling to Dust does a lot of things all at once. So it is a 1-mana instant that draws a card. Right off the bat, there's tons of decks that want that. You know, it makes your Sedgemoor Witch better. It makes your Prowess cards, other colors better. It's cheap. It fills the graveyard for your Delve cards. It's also a graveyard hate card, which is great because you can script your opponent's graveyard stuff, exile their Faithless Looting, whatever. So you get some value there. And then it has Escape, which is awesome too. So in a longer game, it's also a mana sink. So all of that for 1 mana at instant speed in black is just awesome. And this is the kind of card, again, that makes your cube deck stop feeling like a, you know, kind of clunky, whatever, cast my big stuff commander deck, and more like a constructed deck. You know, this is the kind of card you see in constructed. So I love Cling. I was super happy to add to my cube. I think it's great. It fills a lot of roles, and it's just great. I'm a huge fan of it. It's awesome. Dark Ritual obviously is great. More of a combo card than anything else. You don't see this card played fairly too often, but as far as your combo decks go, there are Storm cards in the cube. Obviously, there's Tendrils and Brain Freeze, and Yagamoth's Will, etc., etc. So more of a combo card. Entomb, obviously, super cool card in my cube. You know, obviously cool with Reanimate, but you can Entomb Hogak or Bloodghast. I love fair Entombs when you Entomb for like Life Alone or Bloodghast, but just obviously a great card. Fatal Push, great kill spell. Nothing too crazy here. The curve of my cube is pretty low, so it's pretty on all the time. Imperial Seal and Vampiric Tutor, you know, don't need too much introduction here. Your combo decks need tutors, and these cards do that. It's a proxy, but what are you gonna do? Favorite Dark Ritual art? Yeah, I like this one. This one's pretty cool. I like it. Looks like an old metal album cover, you know. So Imperial Seal, and then of course Vampiric Tutor. Black is one of the better combo colors because of the tutors. Obviously, there are a lot of tutors in black. You know, and I think that drafting combo decks in my cube is definitely encouraged. You know, whether you're an Oath of Druids deck, whether you're a Storm deck, some sort of Artifact big mana deck, and the tutors are a big part of that for sure. Discard spells, we have Inquisition, which is obviously great. And again, obviously good in my cube because I have tons of cheap cards in my cube. Good Tension, just a powerful card. And then of course Thoughtseize. I freaking love this old border Thoughtseize. Love it. Just look at it. Look at it. Love it. Love it. Of course, we have Reanimate. Which is pretty, nothing crazy here. Just Reanimate's a good card, obviously. Then we have Village Rites. And again, it's important to provide support for your black creatures. You can't just put Bloodsoaked Champion in your cube and expect it to be good. You're right. You need to have synergy that goes with it. So we have Village Rites, which has some other cards that do have synergy as well. Just a solid card. Just a super solid card. And gives black some card draw. Keeps your cards in the graveyard, which is nice. It's nice. Moving on to our 2-drops here. Animate Dead's obviously great. A million words on it. Kind of confusing, but just goes along with your animation stuff, which is great. Bitter Blossom. Now, Bitter Blossom is a little bit under the bar as far as power level goes over the last few years. This card was banned in Mid-Modern for a while. It sees no play anymore. But, again, it fills that role of fodder to sacrifice. You know, Bitter Blossom with your Braids or your Smokestack or whatever. And just a good card. Just a fine card. You know, it's not the most exciting card of all time, but it's super cool. It's super cool. It does also allow your Tarmogoyf to be the full size as well, so that's kind of fun. Cabal Ritual is one of the more narrow cards. You know, there are a few cards in the cube that are very narrow. You're only ever playing this card in a combo deck. But I think having, you know, maybe 1 or 2 cards in each color that are like this, that are super narrow, is fine. Again, if this card goes last in your draft because no one's drafting Storm, that is a feature, not a bug, in my opinion. Because it's much more interesting to have a card like this than just to have generic 5-mana Mythic Rare Doom Whisperer or whatever, you know, like, so definitely one of the more narrow cards in black, but want to have the redundancy as far as rituals go. Killdub, thanks for the raid, appreciate that. If you're sitting, welcome to the stream. This is a cube sleeving stream. We're going over every card in my entire cube, answering questions, talking stories, just talking cube design in general. Brutality is great. It's a very flexible card. It's also a good discard outlet for your Animator deck. Just a super flexible card. The fact that it's, you know, good against creature decks, it's good against burn decks, it's good against spell decks, discard outlet. The kind of good flexible card that helps make your cube deck into a deck. And if you're if you have discard cards for value, it's very good at that too. But kill a dub. No, thanks my friend, I appreciate it. No introduction here. It's the Demonic Tutor. It goes in the cube. That's it. Eliminate's an important one. So Eliminate is one of our removal spells in black. Killing Planeswalkers is important. You know, Oko is in the cube. I know, but it is. We'll get to that when we get to the multicolored cards. But you know, there are some Planeswalkers that need to be killed, and just need to have kill spells in black. One of the best ones. So Eliminate's great. Flexible kill spell, which is awesome. Next card is one I like a lot also in Ransack the Lab. And this is the black strategic planning. But black cares about the graveyard the most. And I've been pretty impressed with this card, honestly. It's great in graveyard decks. Finds you what you want. You know, graveyard decks also not only needs cards to go in the graveyard, but graveyard decks also need to find certain pieces. This does both, which I like a lot. A little below the bar on power level. Cool glue card. I agree. This is the kind of like the nuts and bolts card you won't see in most cubes. This is the card that allows you to draft a deck. I keep saying it. I'm going to keep saying it, but super cool. We got Sinkhole. I freaking love killing lands. Got to have your Disruption, of course. Sinkhole is great. Himbatorok, same thing. Got to have Disruption. Lunch. Lunchy munchies. Smallpox. I love Smallpox, and of course with things like Bloodghast. Again, we see a lot of the same themes here. The black themes are very much based on the graveyard, sacrificing creatures, and so on and so forth. Love Smallpox. Freaking love this card. Very, very powerful. Just a great card. The one black Planeswalker is Liliana the Veil, and if this card looks weird to you, it's because it is.
Somebody's playing a prank on me.
I don't even know where I got this. It was just in like some cards that someone gave me a box of cards or whatever, and I guess someone just printed their own cube, and you know, I'm not opposed to proxies in my cube. It looks pretty real, as long as it looks good. I don't care. So yeah, Leon's great, obviously, and of course very good in all the discard stuff. Just a great Planeswalker. Up next is one of our big combo cards here in Necropotence, and for a while I had Yawgmoth's Bargain in my cube, but Necro is just better and cheaper. And if you're playing in the Storm combo deck, this is the card you want. Another somewhat narrow card. Most decks don't want this card. But if you're like a mono black aggro deck, or if you're a Storm deck, this is one of the best cards you can have. Just pay 7, draw 7, kill your opponent. And yeah. Powerful card. I know I have a kind of an ugly art here for Necro, but the old versions of a card, the text is so confusing and convoluted that I just wanted to have the version of a card with the clearest Oracle text on it. So that's why we have the somewhat ugly new version of a card. Usually I like old versions of a card, but readability is important. Readability is important. Phyrexian Arena is a super boomer card. I love Phyrexian Arena though, and it's not coming out of my cube. It's very boomery. It's very, very slow, but I just love Phyrexian Arena. And it's my cube. I'll do what I want to do. All right? Recurring Nightmare is an absolute classic. You can see how played this card is. Again, it's a World Champs card. Recurring Nightmare is awesome. It's also awesome because it's not just a strict reanimate. You can do cool loops and stuff like that. Obviously, the card's great. I don't need to explain why it's great. Toxic Deluge. This card's cool. Damnation's also in the cube. You know, kind of allows for control elements, things like that. And, yeah, it's a cool card. Nothing crazy. Yawgmoth's Will is one of the most important Storm cards, combo cards. This is the card you need for your combo deck, usually. You don't need it, but it's very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. And again, obviously makes your rituals all great. Lotus Petal and so on and so forth. No Lotus in my cube, but there's Lotus Petal and rituals and stuff like that. So, again, there's definitely a combo slant in black for sure. Speaking of combo slant, we have Tendrils of Agony, one of our 2 Storm cards. Nothing really to say about that. Storm is definitely draftable in my cube. It is not easy, but it is definitely draftable and can be very good. You can definitely draft a Storm deck that can win on turn 4 pretty consistently in my cube if you get the right pieces and stuff. I know it's kind of a trap in Magic Online cubes often, but it is definitely a doable thing in my cube for sure. Damnation is next, and it's funny, John helped sort the cube last night, Jim D. Wow in chat, and John was like, it's like Wrath of God, but it's backwards. I was like, yes. I was explaining to him, because he also was like, Tarmogoyf looks really weird. Is this an old card? So I was explaining to him how like the Time Spiral past, present, and future cards, you know, worked, and how this was like a, you know, the alternate future kind of, or alternate present kind of card. So it's kind of cool. You know, obviously you want some control cards as well, so animation is fine. Our next two cards are some of my favorites. We have Nether Void, also proxy because it's way too expensive. This is sort of like your black Armageddon. And once again, this is a card that often isn't good enough in a lot of cubes because the mana curve isn't low enough to support this, but it's great in my cube. This is the black Armageddon. It basically mana leaks every spell after it's cast, so you get ahead, you play this, you win the game, maybe you sinkhole them, braids them. Obviously not the most fun card in the sense that, like, you play this card, you can't do anything, but that's kind of what Armageddon is. So, super sweet. Cool art, too. Definitely agree. Our other world enchantment is the Abyss. Now, the Abyss is a very powerful card. If you're unfamiliar, basically every player sacks a non-artifact creature each turn. And this is powerful for two reasons. One, if you're a control deck, this card's great. Control deck or a creatureless combo deck, this just kills a creature every turn. But also, there's a strong artifact theme in my cube too. So if you're an artifact creature deck, you can just play this in your deck and have kill their creatures, keep your creatures. So again, trying to find these multifaceted cards is really, really important, where you have multiple elements, you know, and you can use it in different ways is so important. Is so important. There are a few narrow cards like Cabal Ritual that only really do one thing, but finding the ones that can do multiple things is really, really cool. Murderous Cut's great. Delve is a fantastic cube mechanic because Delve is has diminishing returns. You can't have too many Delve cards in your deck. So typically, we don't see Murderous Cut in decks because you see Gurmag Angler instead. But in a cube environment, this card's perfect. So super great cube card. And our last black card is an artifact. It is Bolus's Citadel, and great taker target. Also very castable in a Storm deck, and if you're playing rituals and stuff like that. Just very powerful card. Haven't seen it in play yet because I added it somewhat recently, but excited to see how it plays out. And that's it. That's black. We're moving on, folks. We're doing great, and we're gonna keep going. Our next color is red, but YouTube folks, all cut up in different videos. YouTube folks, I love you. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Look for cube content on CoolStuffInc.com from me over the next month. I'm gonna be doing another cube compendium guide or whatever, and that'll be really, really cool. So YouTube, love you. Like, comment, subscribe. Twitch stream. We're gonna keep on rolling.